So good morning, everyone. I want to really celebrate you because you are committed to showing up for your life and really taking this time to craft your life. And that's what successful people do. And the thing is, doing these things day after day, getting up an hour earlier than many people in your household, it's not always sexy and it's certainly not glorious, but it's that compound effect. You doing these things every single day, you strengthening your skills, you building your confidence, you leaning into that new life. Because as you know, if you want something different, you've got to do something different. You've got to be on that edge. You've got to stretch yourself. And I want you to celebrate those little wins because you're doing those things. And it's such an honor to be able to be with you guys. Your days are actually your life in miniature. And if you think of your days as your life in miniature, you would realize that never is there a wasted day. Every single day is making you who you are. It's contributing to your legacy in some way. So if you treat your days with such respect and value, that'll bring us to what we're going to talk about today. That's our time. Our time is our most precious resource. So it is so important to value it and to respect it and to manage it. And that sounds very heavy. And time management doesn't have to be heavy. However, when you have a system to maximize your use of time, it obviously will net you greater results. So I think many of you already know this and implement these things. So this just might be a good reminder. So there's two parts to your Jumpstart to Joy task. Number one is to review how you use and respect time and how you schedule your days. And are you as efficient as you could be? And number two is to be aware of the pitfalls of those time suckers that are not allowing you to live your best life. So I'm going to go through a few of each of them. You don't have to write them all down. Helena's made memes so that you can go back to them and just keep it in mind. Okay, so the first thing is to make sure you establish your goals and prioritize them, which we did our very first day when we started talking about like what's really important. What do I really want to craft in my 10-year plan? If I could create anything, if I could strive to be the best person I could possibly be, what would my life look like? So number one, make sure you've got really clear goals. And number two, prioritize them. We all have non-negotiables in our day, and that's why a lot of us decide to get up earlier in the day so we can maximize the time that we have. So another part about really prioritizing your day, you've got to be okay eliminating. We've talked a little bit about this, but I cannot emphasize this enough. You must eliminate what no longer aligns with the life you want to craft. It's so easy to give your time, your most precious resource, over to somebody else's agenda. And remember, you're here for a reason. So if you give your most precious resource over to somebody else's goals before looking and prioritizing your own, well, you're helping them craft a beautiful life and not focused on yourself. All right, you've been gifted with this time. Don't squander it away on somebody else's. Now I'm not saying don't contribute to other people's lives, but don't make their priorities your top priorities. So be okay saying no. And what was the other part? Oh, don't be a martyr to your own life. And what I mean by that is if you can delegate something to somebody else, don't make yourself feel important by doing those things you really don't need to do. And okay, now I'm going to just be straight up honest. When I started to get busier, when I was both working full-time as a teacher as well as building a business, I had to delegate. I had to delegate because obviously being the best me I could be and being the best mom I could be and the wife and the best daughter and teacher and entrepreneur, again, time is the biggest leverager. We all have 24 hours. So my husband started to take on some of those jobs that I would do. But I had my identity wrapped up in how laundry was done and how it was folded. And so when I delegated it and he wasn't doing those things the way I did them, I started to take those things off and then make my schedule way too busy. So delegate what you can, let go of the way maybe you would have done it. And some of you said that so beautifully on the day where I asked you to make your bed with pride. And some of you said, my partner makes my bed. And I had to, some of you went back and remade it because it felt good. And some of you said, I chose not to remake it because he made the bed or she made the bed. It might not have been exactly how you would do it, but you can loosen up on some of those things so you can enjoy more time. So that's number one. Prioritize and make sure you're not taking on things that are not yours. And if you can delegate, delegate. Number two, what gets scheduled gets done. So, first of all, you've got to have a schedule. And I don't care if it's a digital schedule, if you use your phone as a schedule, or you use a paper calendar or an agenda, but what gets scheduled gets done. So you must schedule and then you must consult and stick to the schedule because, again, you don't have an infinite amount of time. You must respect time. The other thing is when you are scheduling, schedule smart, schedule and chunk things together. It's funny, if you look at what you accomplish in 1 hour with me. So most of you have done some meditation, maybe some prayer, some breath work, some gratitude. You have filled your mind with positivity. You have connected with 40 other people in the morning and shared energy with them and opened and expanded your mind. You may have done some journaling. You may have done some visualization. And we've done 20 minutes of yoga before people even got out of bed. Now, if you were to do journaling and then cooking and then gratitude and then laundry, if you don't chunk that together, that same list of the to-dos may take you 2 hours throughout the day. But because we go from one to the other, you've got your space set up so you don't have to go and grab things. You know where a pen is, you know you've got your visualization books, you've got your affirmations, they're all likely there. So chunk important tasks together. And know when, this is number three, know when you're at your best. I know I'm at my best after my morning routine. After my morning routine, I know I have 3 hours where I can bang out some of the best work I've got. So you've got to know when you're at your best and then do the most important tasks at that time. And I also know you've got non-negotiables. The kids are up and they've got to get breakfast, and that's okay. But within your life and the things that are most important, schedule what needs to get done in your most productive moments. So you've got to have self-awareness about that as well, and do the hard stuff first. One of the best pieces of advice I can give you is figure out what makes your tummy kind of turn, what's making your heart beat faster, what makes those shallow breaths happen because you're a little bit worried about maybe it's an uncomfortable situation. I say, eat those dirty frogs first. And you actually start to like the dirty frogs because, first thing in the morning, they're off your plate. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you do the hard stuff first, you feel accomplished. When you feel accomplished, guess what happens? You get that hit of dopamine, and those endorphins are going. So you're like, well, if I can do that, I can do anything. And all of a sudden, you start to utilize time more effectively. So do the hard stuff first. Number 4, don't overschedule. It's really good for me to be teaching this stuff because guess what, guys? I have been overscheduling. I'm very passionate, and there's so many projects that I have in my brain right now, and I want to do them to the best of my ability. And then I was in bed when we were discussing, which Sean and I do. I never ask you to do something I'm not already doing or want to make a priority. And I said, what were the best things that happened? Sometimes over dinner we'll say, high of the day, low of the day. And I said, I've overscheduled myself, so I don't feel accomplished. And yet, if I do what I asked you to do last night and look back at how far I'd come, I did so many amazing things. And my brain was focused on what I didn't get done. So, with breath work and a little bit of lightness and a little bit of humor, I was able to get myself back to a place. I'm grateful for what I have done, and I'm eager and excited for what tomorrow will bring. But the lesson is, don't overschedule, because you want to feel good about how you're using your time. You don't want to feel scattered. And number five, this helped me a lot last night as well, plan the night before. So let's just talk about a couple of pitfalls. And there's no judgment here, guys. Awareness is that first step. Number one, biggest pitfall, you guys don't have this problem, is starting your day too late. If you get up too late, you've already squandered some of those hours that you could have had as very productive time. Number two, multitasking. Many of us do this, but science shows if you are multitasking, you're not giving the best of you, the focus for you on that one particular task. Now, maybe it's listening to a podcast while you're doing dishes. The reality is the dishes are probably going to get done. They may not be done as well if you got really into the podcast, but if you don't sit with pen and paper while you're listening to the podcast, perhaps you won't retain it. Sometimes we have to choose to multitask, but a lot of times we are multitasking, doing three, four, five, six things at the same time. I had that situation last night. I was very focused on creating content for you guys. And as I was creating content, I was on my phone, I was looking things up, and I had texts coming in. So then the text came in, and right away I flipped out of that and went to the text. And then right away something else came in, and then my husband asked me to do something. I bet I was doing five things. And finally, as I'm looking at this material, I said, I have to just do one thing, focus on it, and do it well. So, can we talk about that after? And guess what, guys? There's a do not disturb button on your phone. It's the little moon. If you swipe down, if you've got an iPhone, and you can stop those texts and go back to them when you finish your task. That's probably one of the biggest gifts I could have given you. And I want to give you permission to put do not disturb on your phone. Too much clutter. Number three is too much clutter. Too much clutter in your physical space. It doesn't make you productive. So it can be a time sucker. And too much clutter, if there's things that are distracting around you, if there's food or something cool, or, like, just clear the clutter. But not just your physical space. I'm very good with my physical space. I am not good with my digital space. If you have ever seen my desktop, I would be extraordinarily embarrassed. I'm sure you have, because I share my screen all the time. That is something that I choose to prioritize, because when you have a clean space around you, both in technology as well as physical space, you're more productive. So, number five, taking on too much. All right, set yourself up for success. That is a pitfall if you take on too much. So, we've talked about that. Number six, understanding how long a task will take. When you are prioritizing and you are scheduling, it's really important to have a certain amount of time allotted for each task, and then stick to it. That's the other thing, stick to it. Otherwise, everything else gets pushed, and then you get stressed, and then you're not as productive. But make sure you give yourself some wiggle room. Make sure you don't overschedule and underestimate the time a task will take, because again, you're not setting yourself up for success, and then you feel like a failure. And that's just something that you'll get better at as you continue to do tasks and schedule. But it's good to have wiggle room, because my next thing is make sure you're scheduling breaks. If you push yourself too much, if you're not using that time for self-care and joy in your day, then you'll resent your scheduling and you won't want to do it. And remember, and when you can infuse a task with joy and happiness and lightness and productivity, then you'll want to do it again. And you want to have that positive reinforcement. So make sure you give yourself breaks. Make sure you're not being busy. All right. Ask yourself, is this truly an effective use of my time? Or am I scheduling myself because we actually sometimes wear busy as a badge of honor? I'm busy. But are you doing tasks that truly take you towards the life you desire? Or are they unimportant tasks that make you feel important because you're doing so much? Just something to be aware of, right? No judgment, awareness, then change the behavior. The other thing is being a perfectionist. This is something I struggle with. I want good quality. If you look at anything in my visualization, it's all about trying to live my best life, living a life that is of self mastery, of excellence. However, I had to learn that excellence doesn't mean perfection. If I have a certain amount of time, sometimes just getting it out there rather than taking inaction and being paralyzed by perfection, that it'll lead to more productivity. I'm not saying don't go back when you have more time and polish things and get better at things, but if you could let go of the perfectionism, you will be more productive and more effective with your use of time. And the number 10 would be just poor planning. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. So that was a lot of information, but I think you already know a lot of this. I just thought it was a really important uh, piece to review so that you can craft your days to help you create that life you really love.